At the time of recording this, now fully settled into 2025, it's really looking like this is going to be a hell of a year for gaming. Assassin's Creed Shadows, Ghosts of Yotei, Death Stranding 2, Doom with a big fat sword, and of course the most anticipated game of the decade with Grand Theft Auto 6 finally arriving. There are so many high-profile games vying for players' attention this year that they're going to overshadow other highly anticipated titles. So with this in mind, I'm Sai, this is WhatCulture, and here are 10 anticipated video games you forgot were coming in 2025. Number 10, Hades 2. Following the astronomical success of its critically acclaimed predecessor, Hades 2 is now only months from its full release after having entered early access in May 2024. This time, players control the younger sister of Zagreus and princess of the underworld as she sets out to seek revenge on Kronos after they usurp her father's kingdom. Despite Hades 2 still being unfinished, what developers Supergiant Games have released is already close to perfection. The combat has been expanded upon by tweaking existing mechanics and introducing new weapons, boons, and abilities to add more depth to the moment-to-moment gameplay. New enemy types and arcana cards that replace Zagreus' mirror likewise mix up the familiar formula in interesting and meaningful ways. Outside of its improved gameplay, Hades 2 looks and sounds as fantastic as you'd expect. Nowhere is the style better seen than during the epic boss fights, which once again act as memorable set pieces. Hades 2 is also much bigger this time. Not only are there more biomes to explore, but the developers are also planning to release extra content before its full release. So though already incredible, this long-awaited sequel is only going to get better when it's here officially. Number 9, The Outer Worlds 2. With 2 highly anticipated games set for release this year, the coming months are an exciting time for Obsidian Entertainment. Alongside finally releasing Avowed, the fantasy RPG set in the Pillars of Eternity universe, this year will also see the arrival of The Outer Worlds 2. While the first game was on the short side for an RPG, its razor-sharp comedy, memorable companions, and exquisite world-building made it an instant hit with players and critics. Although there aren't many details about what to expect from the upcoming sequel at time of speaking, the snippets of information that the developer have shared paint a promising picture. In addition to the announcement trailer being brimming with the developer's signature humor, the sequel promises to be twice the size of its predecessor, which could alleviate the main complaints about the first game. Players will be taken to a new star system with more locations to explore, more weapons to play with, and more enemies to encounter. It's more of everything that made the first game so great, and that's more than enough of a reason to make The Outer Worlds 2 worth the wait. Number 8, the Dark Pictures anthology, Directive 8020. It's a big year for supermassive games. Alongside 2025 seeing the release of Little Nightmares 3, this year is also when horror fans will get the Dark Pictures anthology, Directive 8020, which is set to kick off the series' second season of titles. Ever since Until Dawn, supermassive games have proved that they know how to make interactive horror games. Not only are their engrossing, branching narratives ideal for multiple playthroughs, but their pitch-perfect homages to various horror subgenres have shown they understand what they're doing. From the handful of details that have been shared so far, the anthology's latest entry draws heavily upon sci-fi classics like Event Horizon, Alien, and my beloved The Thing, as it follows its group of characters encountering a shape-shifting creature in the vast reaches of space. In addition to featuring another choice-driven story and even more gruesome death scenes, Directive 8020 marks a significant evolution in the anthology by introducing real-time stealth and survival mechanics for the first time. Directive 8020 may mark a huge improvement in an already excellent series, and that's something to get excited about. Number 7, Gears of War E-Day. Speaking of getting excited, if there was ever a series that epitomized the Xbox 360 era, then it was Gears of War. And sure, the Gears franchise has continued to see success into the current generation, however, it's been some time since players were united with Delta Squad. With the recent announcement of Gears of War E-Day during Microsoft's 2024 Xbox Showcase, fans of the COG have been gleefully rubbing their hands together ever since. But with the announced trailer coming without a date and talk around the franchise more focused on the current rumours that it's coming to PlayStation or even Switch, there's a chance you had no idea that E-Day was occurring in 2025, at least according to insider reports. Putting players in the shoes of a younger Marcus Phoenix, this prequel takes place 14 years before the events of the first game and follows the chaos that unfolded when the Locust first appeared. As well as being an origin story to the series-long war, E-Day will also focus on how the brotherly bond was formed between Marcus and Dom. Fans can also look forward to seeing E-Day return to its horror roots after years of the series leaning more heavily into its action side. Developers The Coalition aim to capture the terror of this moment in the Gears universe to tell what they promise to be an intimate story. Number 6, Hell Is Us. Following its announcement in 2022 and having its release pushed back twice, players can finally expect to get their hands on Rogue Factor's Hell Is Us when it releases later this year. Set in the bleak, war-torn hermit state of Hadia during the early 1990s, the plot follows protagonist Remy return to his homeland in search of his parents after fleeing as a child. His hunt for answers soon takes a supernatural turn when he stumbles upon the monstrous creatures that reside alongside the human survivors. In addition to a tough but fair combat system, investigation plays a key role in the game. Players are encouraged to take their time to talk to other characters and explore to gather clues about what's happening and where they should go next. More crucially though, it's down to the player to figure this out for themselves. With no map and no objective marker to guide them, players will need to make their own way using the information they've gathered and environmental clues, further immersing them into this fascinating world. If you wanted to predict one title as this year's sleeper hit, could be Hell Is Us. Number 5, Fable. Just like the Fable series was once infamous for the false promises made by creator Peter Molyneux, the upcoming release might be most associated with questioning if the game even exists and asking, is this actually going to come out? With no mainline entry in 15 years alongside the closure of original studio Lionhead in 2016, hopes of returning to the Kingdom of Albion seem to be non-existent. That was until Microsoft announced a new Fable game was in the works during their 2020 Xbox showcase, with Forza Horizon developers Playground Games taking the helm this time around. Positioned as a reboot rather than a direct sequel, the upcoming installment will once again see players embark on a grand adventure to battle an evil threat. Like in previous Fable games, the player's choices will determine what kind of hero they become. Although details surrounding the plot are currently sparse, the two cinematic trailers have nailed the serious tone and trademark British humour. Moreover, with the development team consisting of industry veterans who have worked on the likes of Arkham Knight, Hellblade, GTA 5 and Borderlands, players can expect something huge when returning to Albion later this year. Fingers crossed, later this year, let's all say it. Number 4, Post-Trauma. Horror fans are going to be spoiled for choice this year and beyond. Alongside the likes of Dying Light the Beast, Killing Floor 3 and Chronos The New Dawn being set for 2025, Alien Isolation 2, Silent Hill F and Townfall and Paranormal Tales are also on the horizon. It's a good time to be a sicko. But another spooky title the players should be looking forward to is Post-Trauma, which is now scheduled to arrive later this year after missing its October 2024 release date. Developed by Red Soul Games, this survival horror sees an unnamed protagonist awaken in a nightmarish hellscape full of twisted creatures where an unknown fleshy substance coats the surroundings. What separates this title from the plethora of other genre entities though is that this one is a real throwback to old school survival horror and takes its cues from the original Resident Evil and Silent Hill games. Complete with all praise fixed camera angles and difficult puzzles that don't hold the player's hand, this game unapologetically embraces this aesthetic to give horror fans an authentically retro experience, albeit with modern graphics. Set in a location that's as atmospheric as it is strange, Post-Trauma promises to deliver something that's both refreshing and familiar. Number 3, Marvel 1943 Rise of Hydra. While the enthusiasm towards superhero movies has dwindled in recent years, there's still plenty of excitement surrounding their video game counterparts. In addition to the runaway success of Marvel Rivals and the anticipation surrounding Insomniac's upcoming Wolverine game, comic book video games have never been better. But one title that may have slipped under the radar of most people though is Marvel 1943 Rise of Hydra. First announced in 2021, Rise of Hydra follows a young Captain America who forms an uneasy alliance with the Black Panther to face the titular threat. The ensuing action will take players from an occupied Paris to Wakanda and various other currently unknown locations in between, in what's set out to be an action-packed globe-trotting adventure. Alongside controlling Cap and Black Panther, the game also lets players step into the shoes of US sharpshooter Gabriel Jones and Wakandan spy Nanali. The plot will unfold through each of their perspectives, consequently making for a more intricate narrative. Alongside the trailer showing this game to be visually stunning, Rise of Hydra is being produced and scripted by veteran writer Amy Hennig of Uncharted fame. So, the title is on track to being an epic cinematic outing when it does arrive later this year. Number 2, The Wolf Among Us 2. There was a period in the 2010s where Telltale's episodic games were everywhere. Alongside the acclaimed Walking Dead titles, the developers had also dove into the worlds of Batman, Minecraft, Borderlands and Guardians of the Galaxy, each of which delivering sharing their own unique tales. One of the best outings, however, was 2013's The Wolf Among Us. A prequel to Bill Willingham's Fables comic series, The Wolf Among Us is set within a gritty, crime-infested New York City inhabited by displaced fairy tale characters. Players take on the role of Big B Wolf, the city's grizzled sheriff, as he works to solve a series of brutal murders. As the ensuing investigation leads him further down the rabbit hole, he uncovers a sinister conspiracy. Driven by a taut central mystery and a pulpy noir tone which puts an adult spin on child-friendly characters, it's easy to see why this title has earned a cult following that's been eagerly awaiting a follow-up for a decade. Despite the sequel being announced back in 2017, several delays and Telltale's temporary closure saw the release window being pushed back. However, the developers have confirmed that the game isn't cancelled, with the highly anticipated sequel now expected to drop sometime in 2025. And number 1, Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2. The early 2000s were a golden era for RPGs, with the likes of Morrowind, Knights of the Old Republic, and Baldur's Gate 2 making huge leaps within the genre. Another memorable title from this time was Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines, and it's finally about to get its sequel. Released in 2004, this title took place in an LA inhabited by various vampire clans. Players take on the role of a fledgling vampire who finds himself swept up in a city-wide power struggle. By serving a rich narrative with a plethora of meaningful choices, it's no surprise that this game became an all-time cult classic. Now, over 2 decades later, players are finally getting the sequel that they've been waiting for. This time, taking place in Seattle, Bloodlines 2 looks to be offering another player-driven gameplay experience where choice dictates how events unfold. Following years of delays and the Chinese room taking over development, it's been a long road for this game, and players can experience it all in its vampiric goodness when it finally drops later this year.